Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves...
You would think that when a struggling business is handed a winning lottery ticket, they wouldn't tear it up in front of the world. You would assume that when a league, which has burned through cash for nearly 3 decades without turning a profit, finally lands a superstar who sells out arenas in minutes, the leadership would do everything in their power to protect her. But in the WNBA, logic seems to have been thrown out the window. Instead of rolling out the red carpet for Caitlin Clark, the league's hierarchy, led by Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, seems intent on making her life a living nightmare. And now, the situation has escalated from petty jealousy to institutional sabotage. Reports and whispers are swirling that the commissioner is no longer just standing by while Clark gets headhunted. She is now looking to discipline the rookie sensation. We are hearing talk of warnings, potential suspensions based on technical fouls, and a concerted effort to humble the player who is single-handedly paying everyone's bills. It is a level of self-sabotage that sports history has never seen before. It feels personal, it feels vindictive, and it has finally pushed the most vocal man in sports media over the edge. Stephen A. Smith has seen enough. In a rant that shook the sports world, Smith didn't just defend Clark, he went for the jugular of the WNBA leadership. He exposed the envy, the mismanagement, and the shocking lack of business sense coming from the commissioner's office. He laid out exactly why threatening to suspend your golden goose is a death wish for the league. But to understand why Smith went nuclear, we have to look at the dark reality of what has been happening to Caitlin Clark behind closed doors and on the court. This isn't just about basketball anymore. This is a war for the future of women's sports, and the people in charge might just destroy it all before it truly begins. To truly grasp the insanity of the commissioner's stance, you have to understand the sheer magnitude of what Caitlin Clark represents. Before she was drafted, the WNBA was in a precarious position. For 28 years, the league had been subsidized by the NBA, losing an estimated $10 million annually. Viewership was niche, player salaries were capped low, and the idea of charter flights, private planes for the athletes, was a pipe dream that the league claimed it couldn't afford. The product was there, but the casual fans were not. Then, the Clark effect hit, and everything changed overnight. We aren't just talking about a small bump in ratings, we are talking about a seismic shift in the sports landscape. Indiana Fever games began outdrawing NBA playoff games. Jersey sales skyrocketed by thousands of percent. Teams that used to play in half-empty arenas had to move their games against the Fever to massive NBA stadiums just to accommodate the ticket demand. Clark wasn't just a player, she was a traveling economy. Because of her arrival, the league was finally able to secure a media rights deal worth over $2 billion. She put money in the pockets of every single player in the league, including the ones who seemed to despise her the most. This is why the rumors of suspension and the lack of protection are so baffling. Stephen A. Smith pointed this out with brutal accuracy. In any other business, the person responsible for a 200% revenue spike gets the corner office and a security detail. In the WNBA, she gets targeted. Smith argued that Commissioner Engelbert's primary job is to grow the league and make money. By allowing the old guard to physically assault and emotionally torment their biggest asset, Engelbert is failing at the most basic requirement of her job. But the financial negligence is only half the story. The physical toll on Clark has been visible from day one, and that is where the commissioner's silence became deafening. The narrative started before Clark even played a professional minute. Legends of the game, players like Diana Taurasi and Cheryl Swoops, made public comments that felt less like analysis and more like warnings. They spoke of reality checks and how Clark wouldn't dominate the pros like she did in college. It set a tone of hostility that trickled down to the rest of the league. Once the games began, it became clear that the veterans weren't just playing hard defense, they were headhunting. We all saw the moment that shifted the conversation from competition to assault. It was the game against the Chicago Sky. The ball wasn't even in play. Clark was waiting for an inbound pass when Kennedy Carter blindsided her with a hip check that sent her sprawling to the hardwood. It wasn't a basketball play. It was a message. And what did the referees do? They called a common foul, no ejection, no flagrant 2 immediately. It took public outrage and media pressure for the league to upgrade it retroactively. But the damage was done. The league had signaled to every player, "You can take your shots at Clark, and the consequences will be minimal." Stephen A. Smith latched onto this incident as the smoking gun of the commissioner's failure. He screamed that this was jealousy, plain and simple. He questioned why the league office didn't issue immediate fines and suspensions to send a zero-tolerance message. Instead, the physical beating continued. Clark has been blitzed, scratched, and hammered in the paint, more than any other player in the league. She leaves games with bruises and cuts that the cameras don't always catch. Yet, when she turns to the officials to plead her case, she is the one who gets scrutinized. This brings us to the most shocking twist of all, the league's plan to punish the victim. This is the part that sounds like fiction, but it is the grim reality of the WNBA's current climate. Sources indicate that the league office is growing tired of the constant media circus surrounding the officiating of Caitlin Clark. But, rather than fixing the officiating, they are looking to silence the complaints. There have been warnings regarding respect for the game and the accumulation of technical fouls. In the WNBA, if a player accumulates 7 technical fouls, they face an automatic suspension. Clark, because she is constantly arguing against the non-calls on the physical abuse she takes, has been racking up these techs at an alarming rate. Imagine the scenario. The WNBA is in the middle of its biggest season ever. Ratings are through the roof, and the commissioner allows the face of the league to be suspended for a game because she complained about getting hit in the face. It would be a PR disaster of epic proportions. Yet, the warning signs are there. Commissioner Engelbert gave an interview where she tried to play both sides, claiming the rivalries are good for the game and comparing it to Bird versus Magic. But she refused to explicitly condemn the cheap shots. Stephen A. Smith ripped this both sides argument to shreds. He pointed out that Bird and Magic were rivals who respected each other. They weren't trying to injure one another. By framing this abuse as just competitive fire, the commissioner is practically endorsing it. And now, with the threat of suspension looming over Clark, if she doesn't calm down, the league is effectively trying to handcuff her. They want her talent, but they don't want her voice. They want her fans, but they don't want to protect her body. It is a double standard that Smith refused to let slide. When Stephen A. Smith took to the airwaves, he didn't just speak as a fan. He spoke as a man who understands the business of sports better than almost anyone. He looked directly into the camera and addressed the WNBA players and the commissioner with a level of intensity we rarely see. His main point was about gratitude, or the lack thereof. He shouted that these women should be thanking Caitlin Clark, not hazing her. He listed the charter flights, the media attention, and the money, asking explicitly, "What part of this do you not understand?" But his harshest words were reserved for the leadership. He accused Commissioner Engelbert of being weak in the face of player pressure. He suggested that the commissioner is afraid of alienating the veteran players, so she sacrifices the rookie. Smith argued that great commissioners, like the late David Stern of the NBA, understood that you protect the stars at all costs. When Michael Jordan played, you couldn't breathe on him without getting a foul. Why? Because Stern knew that Jordan was the league. Engelbert, according to Smith, is failing this basic IQ test. Smith also dismantled the meritocracy argument. Veterans have complained that Clark gets too much attention before she's earned it. Smith's rebuttal was brutal. Fame isn't about what you've done on the court for 10 years. It's about how many people want to watch you now. He called the jealousy petty, mental, and disgusting. He warned the commissioner that if she actually suspends Clark, or if Clark gets injured because the league refused to step in, the fallout wouldn't just be bad press, it would be financial ruin. The fans who came for Clark will leave with Clark, and they won't come back. We have to tread carefully here, but we cannot ignore the subtext that Stephen A. Smith was brave enough to hint at. There is a racial and cultural component to this backlash that the league is terrified to address. Clark is a white superstar in a predominantly black league, entering a space that has felt ignored by the mainstream media for decades. There is a feeling among some veterans and pundits that Clark is being anointed as the Great White Hope, and that her popularity is due to her race rather than just her game. Smith acknowledged this tension, but flipped the script. He argued that while the WNBA has been home to incredible black female athletes for years, the market didn't respond to them in the same way. That might be unfair, and it might be a reflection of society's flaws, but it is the reality. Smith's message to the commissioner was that you cannot fix societal issues by punishing Caitlin Clark. You cannot achieve equality by tearing down the one person who is finally bringing the spotlight to everyone. The commissioner's attempt to stay neutral in this culture war has backfired. By not addressing the racial toxicity and the harassment Clark has faced from online mobs and even opposing players, the league has allowed a toxic cloud to form. Smith warned that this toxicity is turning off the casual viewer. Families who tuned in to watch basketball are seeing angry discourse, cheap shots, and a league that seems to hate its own success. If the commissioner thinks suspending Clark will appease the haters, she is sorely mistaken. It will only confirm the conspiracy theory that the WNBA is rigged against its own star. But this isn't just about culture. It's about history repeating itself in the worst way possible. Let's look at the history books, because the difference in treatment is staggering. When LeBron James entered the NBA, the league didn't suspend him for complaining. They marketed him as the king before he won a single ring. When Tiger Woods exploded onto the golf scene, the PGA Tour didn't try to humble him. They redesigned courses to fit his game and watched the prize money triple. Every smart league leans into its superstars. The WNBA is the only league that seems to resent them. Stephen A. Smith drew a parallel to the NBA of the 80s and 90s. He reminded everyone that the bad boy Pistons were physical, yes, but the league eventually stepped in to protect Jordan because they knew he was the global icon. The WNBA is currently in its bad boy era, where physicality is being used to gatekeep the sport. But unlike the NBA of the past, the WNBA commissioner isn't stepping in. She is letting the inmates run the asylum. The warning of suspension for Clark is the ultimate double standard. Draymond Green in the NBA can scream at a ref for 5 minutes before getting tossed. Clark throws her hands up in frustration after getting hacked, and she gets a tech. The officiating bias is real, and the data backs it up. Clark drives to the basket constantly, but ranks lower in free throw attempts than players with half her usage rate. Smith argues This isn't an accident. It's a systemic failure to referee the game fairly for the rookie, coupled with a hypersensitivity to her reaction. They are gaslighting her, beating her up physically, then punishing her when she reacts emotionally. We are at a breaking point. The season is grinding on, the playoffs are approaching, and the tension is at an all-time high. Stephen A. Smith has effectively issued an ultimatum to Commissioner Engelbert. Do your job or lose your league. The warning to suspend Caitlin Clark has to be taken off the table immediately. If anything, the warnings should be directed at the headhunters who are trying to hurt her. The WNBA has a choice. They can continue down this path of pettiness, jealousy, and administrative incompetence, treating Caitlin Clark like a problem to be solved rather than a gift to be cherished. If they do that, they might win the battle against the media circus, but they will lose the war. The millions of new fans will tune out. The TV deals will dry up. The charter flights will disappear, and the league will go back to irrelevance. Or the commissioner can listen to the criticism. She can take Stephen A. Smith's words not as an attack, but as a wake-up call. She can protect the asset. She can embrace the new era. But based on the rumors of suspensions and the silence from the top, it looks like the WNBA is choosing the hard way. And as Smith said, if they ruin this opportunity, they will have no one to blame but themselves. The world is watching, and right now, the WNBA is blinking. But that wasn't the whole story. Because what happened in the post-game press conference changed everything. You would think that when a struggling business is handed a winning lottery ticket, they wouldn't tear it up in front of the world. You would assume that when a league, which has burned through cash for nearly 3 decades without turning a profit, finally lands a superstar who sells out arenas in minutes, the leadership would do everything in their power to protect her. But in the WNBA, logic seems to have been thrown out the window. Instead of rolling out the red carpet for Caitlin Clark, the league's hierarchy, led by Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, seems intent on making her life a living nightmare. And now, the situation has escalated from petty jealousy to institutional sabotage. Reports and whispers are swirling that the commissioner is no longer just standing by while Clark gets headhunted. She is now looking to discipline the rookie sensation. We are hearing talk of warnings, potential suspensions based on technical fouls, and a concerted effort to humble the player who is single-handedly paying everyone's bills. It is a level of self-sabotage that sports history has never seen before. It feels personal, it feels vindictive, and it has finally pushed the most vocal man in sports media over the edge. Stephen A. Smith has seen enough. In a rant that shook the sports world, Smith didn't just defend Clark, he went for the jugular of the WNBA leadership. He exposed the envy, the mismanagement, and the shocking lack of business sense coming from the commissioner's office. He laid out exactly why threatening to suspend your golden goose is a death wish for the league. But to understand why Smith went nuclear, we have to look at the dark reality of what has been happening to Caitlin Clark behind closed doors and on the court. This isn't just about basketball anymore. This is a war for the future of women's sports, and the people in charge might just destroy it all before it truly begins. To truly grasp the